Dysfunction Files, Episode 28, The Gut on Fire, Autism and the Microbiome. This week's case takes us down into the crime scene nobody wants to talk about. Poop. Let's be adults about this. I'm talking about the gut. But of course, we evaluate the gut by looking at poop. Well, I don't, but hopefully some overpaid scientists do this in specialty labs. Gut issues and brain issues are closely linked to one another. Remember, your gut is your second brain. And I don't mean butterflies in your stomach before a big exam. I mean the burning dumpster fire of dysbiosis that links directly to the brain. In autism, the evidence is piling up like a stack of unfiled police reports. The suspects? Antibiotics handed out like candy, C-section births and formula feeding, glyphosate, food dyes, seed oils, and ultra-processed food, and the usual gang of thugs, clostridia, yeast, and low microbiome diversity. The crime? A disrupted gut-brain axis that sets kids up for neuronal inflammation, mitochondrial sabotage, and behaviors we ultimately label autism. The motive? Well, that depends on whether you think this is accidental or by design. A bridge too far? I'm Dr. Kristen Lindgren, and welcome back to the Dysfunction Files. We kicked off this autism miniseries following the HHS presser implicating Tylenol, and maybe vaccines, as causal agents in the etiology of autism, and how a B vitamin called leucovorin or folinic acid might fit into that picture as a therapeutic agent. Last week, we took a 30,000-foot view of autism, a spectrum of similarly appearing diagnoses that in all likelihood have many different causal factors. This week, we're focusing on the trail of evidence from the gut to the brain, and it's looking less like coincidence and more like conspiracy. Let's get into it. The crime scene. The gut-brain axis. The gut isn't just a digestive tube. It's a neural hub, often called the second brain. It houses over 100 million neurons, more than the spinal cord, and communicates constantly with the brain via the vagus nerve. Here's why that matters. When the gut is inflamed, the brain doesn't just notice, it responds. When the gut leaks toxins into the bloodstream, the brain mounts a defense. And when the wrong microbes dominate the gut, they don't just upset digestion, they rewrite neurotransmitters and alter brain behavior. Think of it like a bad open mic night. The helpful microbes, the healthy bifidobacteria and lactobacillus species, never get the stage. Instead, the drunk loudmouths, clostridia, candida, and opportunists hog the mic, and what they're singing isn't music. It's toxic metabolites like K-pop.
Ice cream.
Propionic acid, a compound that can mimic autistic behaviors in lab animals. So when parents say, my kid's autism symptoms get worse when his stomach is a mess, they aren't imagining it. They're describing the gut-brain axis in action. The suspects. Dysbiosis. Let's line up the usual suspects. Clostridia species, the propionic acid factory. Clostridia are normal gut residents, but when they take over, things get ugly. These bacteria pump out something called propionic acid, a short-chain fatty acid that in small amounts is harmless, but in excess becomes a neurotoxin. We see production of propionic acid in overdrive in specific patterns of dysbiosis, especially when beneficial butyrate producers are depleted. Okay, let's see if we can say these. Fecalibacterium presnitzii, Roosberia, Eubacterium rectale. Wonder where that one's at. Anaerobutyricum. I'm putting that in every script. And fermentative species take over, like Clostridium species, Candida, and Enterococcus, a pattern often seen in kids with autism, chronic inflammation, or high sugar diets. In that terrain, Clostridia shift into overdrive, flooding the system with this propionic acid situation that crosses the blood-brain barrier, disrupts neurotransmitters, and hijacks mitochondrial function like a tiny biochemical arsonist. And here's where the plot thickens. In animal studies, when scientists inject propionic acid directly into the brains of rats, why? Just why? The animals develop autism-like behaviors, repetitive movements, social withdrawal, even seizures. In kids with autism, stool and urine samples often showed elevated propionic acid compared to neurotypical peers. And to add insult to injury, food manufacturers actually add propionic acid to bread, dairy, and processed foods as a preservative. So kids already overproducing it in the gut are getting a nice extra dose in their diet. Perfect. What does propionic acid do? It rewrites brain chemistry. It alters dopamine and serotonin signaling. It blocks carnitine transport, strangling mitochondria and leaving neurons starved for energy. It ramps up inflammation and oxidative stress. Think of it as the mob boss of dysbiosis, sending orders from the gut that leave the brain in chaos. Candida and yeast overgrowth. Candida ferments sugar into acetaldehyde, a toxic alcohol byproduct. Imagine your toddler's brain getting microdosed with alcohol all day, every day. That fogs attention, slows speech, destabilizes mood. Plus, it's totally illegal, but whatever, I'm not like the cops over here. Hit up Woodman's. Low diversity microbiome. Multiple studies show kids with autism have less microbial diversity. A healthy microbiome is like a rainforest, dense, balanced, resilient. Autism kids' guts look more like a strip-mined desert. Weeds, thorns, and, well, not much else. The accomplices. Modern lifestyle. Dysbiosis doesn't just appear out of nowhere, it's manufactured by modern living. Antibiotics. A single course can wipe out years of microbial diversity, leaving resistant bad actors to move in. C-section birth. Babies born by C-section miss the maternal vaginal microbiome starter kit and instead pick up microbes from the hospital environment. Formula feeding. Breast milk contains unique sugars that specifically feed protective gut bacteria. Formula replaces them with cow's milk proteins and processed sugars. Glyphosate. This weed killer sprayed on much of our food doubles as an antibiotic. It preferentially kills the good bacteria, leaving clostridia to thrive. Together, these accomplices create the perfect breeding ground for gut dysfunction, and by extension, brain dysfunction. Are you enjoying my rooster? Leaky gut, leaky brain. Now the plot thickens. The cells that line your gut are called enterocytes, and they are literally cemented together like a brick wall. Nothing gets in or out of that lining unless it's intentional. You need receptors and transporters because everything your body doesn't need is headed for your toilet. There's no willy-nilly crisscrossing through the gut wall lining, unless it's, leaky, of course. When the intestinal barrier weakens, you get leaky gut. Tight junction proteins loosen, and bacterial toxins like lipopolysaccharides or LPSs seep into the bloodstream. The immune system reacts like a SWAT team crashing in through the door. Cytokines, inflammation, and collateral damage. And here's the kicker. Kids with autism often have a compromised blood-brain barrier too, so these same inflammatory molecules march straight into the brain. The result? Chronic brain inflammation, neurodevelopmental disruption, and behaviors we can see, but conventional medicine often shrugs at. The evidence trail. Propionic acid, mitochondria, and stool testing. This is where the evidence really piles up. Let's go back to our prime suspect, Clostridia. Remember, they pump out propionic acid, and in small amounts it's harmless, but in excess it's a neurotoxin with a rap sheet a mile long. Here's what propionic acid does. Mitochondrial sabotage. Propionic acid blocks the transport of carnitine, the shuttle system that ferries fatty acids into the mitochondria. Without carnitine, neurons can't burn fat for energy. They stall, misfire, and run on fumes. Neurotransmitter chaos. Propionic acid alters dopamine and serotonin signaling, changing how kids process reward, focus, and mood. Neuroinflammation. Propionic acid ramps up oxidative stress and cytokines, leaving the brain inflamed and irritable. Behavioral proof. In lab animals, injections of propionic acid trigger autistic-like behaviors, repetitive movements, social withdrawal, even seizures. That's not coincidence. That's a smoking gun. And again, propionic acid isn't just made in the gut, it's also added to food as a preservative. Bread, cheese, processed snacks, all stamped safe, while quietly dosing kids with the very same compound linked to autistic behaviors. So how do we catch it in the act? Enter comprehensive digestive stool testing. Tests like the GI map or an organic acid test or OAT test don't just list who's living in the gut, they measure the damage. They can flag Clostridia overgrowth, show markers of propionic acid metabolites like HPA, and reveal leaky gut indicators like zonulin. It's basically a crime lab report on the microbiome, complete with fingerprints and a list of accomplices. And once you know who's running the show, you can actually intervene. Lower propionic acid production, support mitochondria with carnitine and antioxidants, and restore balance to the gut ecosystem. The experimental frontier, fecal transplants, and the microbiome reset. Now, if you thought the story couldn't get any weirder, hold on to your hazmat suit, because the next twist in this case involves a treatment so literal it almost sounds like a punchline. Fecal microbiota transplantation, or FMT. Yes, you heard that right. A poop transplant. I told you this episode might get messy. The idea is shockingly simple. If a child's gut ecosystem is a crime scene dominated by bad actors like clostridia and yeast, then maybe the fastest way to restore order is to replace the whole damn thing, like the whole microbial population with one from a healthy donor. It's a total microbiome reboot. Dr. David Perlmutter has written extensively on this. He calls it a reset button for the gut. And while it's still experimental, the data are starting to look, well, promising. Here's what researchers have found so far. In early open-label studies of kids with autism and severe GI issues, FMT and its cousin, microbiota transfer therapy, not only improved constipation and diarrhea, they cut behavioral symptom scores almost in half. And some of those gains persisted 2 years later. Follow-up work from Arizona State University's research team showed sustained microbial diversity and reduced levels of the very toxins like propionic acid that we just talked about. Animal studies back it up. When scientists transfer gut microbes from neurotypical mice into autistic mouse models, social interaction improves and inflammation drops. But before anyone starts ordering black market donor samples on eBay, let's talk reality. This therapy isn't FDA approved for autism or anything beyond recurrent C. diff infection here in the US. The trials we have are small, open label, and tightly controlled. Donor stool must be screened like it's auditioning for the CIA. Parasites, viruses, antibiotic resistance genes all have to be ruled out, because along with friendly bacteria, you could also transfer something far worse, and results aren't always permanent. Some kids lose benefits after only a few months. Others need maintenance dosing or follow-up probiotic protocols to hold the gains. Still, FMT is proof of concept that the microbiome itself can be therapeutically engineered. That's a huge paradigm shift. Instead of targeting one microbe or one pathway, we restore an entire ecosystem. So yes, it's gross. It's controversial, but it's also the boldest evidence yet that the gut and brain are inseparably linked, and that when you fix the terrain, the brain starts to heal. Now, let's talk about tools you can actually use today to start cleaning up the crime scene. The roadmap. How to clean up the crime scene. So words. Okay, but what do we do? Here's the roadmap I use in practice. First, test, not guess. You don't know what on God's green earth you're dealing with until you test it. Just because we see patterns of dysbiosis in autistic populations doesn't mean it's universal. Everyone is different. Poop in the box and find out. Second, elimination diets. Ideally, you test here too for food sensitivities, but regardless of what that test shows, gluten and dairy are big offenders. Refined sugar, fake sugar or sugar alcohols, food dyes, and seed oils. Get them out of here. Some kids also react to soy and corn. Pulling these foods reduces inflammation and improves behavior almost universally. Is this easy? No, it is not. I'm not promoting the gluten-free chicken nugget, but hey, at least it doesn't contain any gluten. Remember, every positive change helps. This isn't all or nothing. Third, probiotics and prebiotics. Targeted probiotics help reintroduce missing species. Prebiotic fibers feed the good guys, restoring gut balance. Fourth, gut lining repair. Nutrients like L-glutamine, zinc carnosine, omega-3s strengthen the intestinal barrier. Collagen and bone broth can also be supportive. Antifungals and antimicrobials. Herbal protocols like oregano oil, berberine, caprylic acid, or prescriptions if needed. These knock back yeast and clostridia overgrowths. 5. Diet upgrade. Whole food, organic, low glyphosate diets. Less sugar, less processed food, more diversity. I can't emphasize this enough. Heal the gut, calm the brain. Case study. Sophia was developing perfectly. Well, until she wasn't. Around her first birthday, her parents watched the light dim. Eye contact faded, words disappeared, and climbing became her new language. After months of wait and see, a Zoom-era psychiatrist labeled her with level 3 autism, but her parents weren't ready to accept that as the end of the story. In 2025, her parents brought Sophia to us. We started in the gut because that's where inflammation whispers before it screams. 2 rounds of nystatin, gentle silver for H. pylori, diet cleanup, and later spore-based probiotics. Within months, words returned, sleep improved, the light came back.
Color. What color is this one?
Yellow.
Today, Sophia counts to 12, sings her ABCs, and tells you her favorite color.
C, D, E, F, G.
Her brain is catching up because her gut finally calmed down.
I love you so much.
I love you so much.
So, what have we uncovered? The gut isn't an innocent bystander in autism. It's a co-conspirator, maybe even the mastermind. Dysbiosis poisons the brain. Leaky gut fuels inflammation. Mitochondria are strangled, and kids pay the price. But here's the hopeful part. When you heal the gut, you give the brain a fighting chance. That'll do it for me. I'm Dr. Kristen Lindgren, and thank you for tuning into another episode of the Dysfunction Files. If you found this episode useful or entertaining, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, and share it with a friend. Those things are 100% free, easy to do, and they really help the channel out. If you or someone you know is interested in learning more about how to tackle the full-on offensive line called autism, come find us at Lindgren Functional Medicine. Visit our website or give our office a call. We'd love to hear from you. Until next time, stay skeptical, keep learning, because with knowledge comes the power to take charge of your own healthcare. Coming up in the last episode of the Autism miniseries, we go after other really important variables we can test for and treat: toxin burden and chronic infections. I'll see you for the next one. Bye for now.